and just like that, fires right back up. All right, what is up, guys? So welcome back to the channel, and today we're not working on the MGB, which I'm sure some of y'all are thankful for. So we're working on mine and my wife's daily driver, which is just a 2005 Honda CR-V. Nothing special. It's just got the Honda K-Series engine in it, and I did do a small lift on it with some bigger wheels just because I couldn't not do anything to it, which, yes, it's a daily. But anyways, enough of that. But today we're going to be working on doing the injectors. I'm going to try to be cleaning them because I just realized the other day that this car, even before I did the wheels and tires, gets about like 240 miles to a tank on a really good day, like just highway driving. So everything I've seen online says these should be getting roughly, again, I have bigger wheels and tires, so probably like 300 to 330,000 is what they say you average on a full tank. So I'm getting way less than that, like almost a full 100 miles less than that, which I just haven't addressed because I haven't had the time. It does run good. It doesn't run bad. It doesn't run rich. So I don't know if one of the injectors is just really clogged or if it's burning the fuel inefficiently or what it is. We did new spark plugs not too long ago. That didn't fix it. I ran some fuel cleaner through the tank. It seemed to help at first. My needles seemed to drop slower, but I still got about the same fuel mileage. So today we're going to be doing the injectors. So to get to these guys first, we got to take off this little pretty cover plate that Honda puts on here. And these two bolts look to be 10 millimeters, which I got on here right now. So we'll pop this guy off. We'll set this off to the side. I'm just going to drop my bolts in there because I don't have a bolt tray on me. So right here is the fuel rail plus the wiring harness. Looks like the wiring harness is just clipped on there with some tabs. So what we'll do first is we'll unplug each injector bank, which is right here. It's just these little clips right here. And we'll get all four of those guys off. That is the best thing about this car, guys. It is incredibly easy to work on because the engine's just right here. After that, it looks like we've got two more 12 millimeter bolts right here holding the fuel rail onto the engine. All right, so we got a 12 millimeter on here. And pop those guys loose. I'm just going to break them loose first and then... Is that guy loose already? No, not on the bolt all the way. There we go. So pop them loose. And then here we have the two bolts. The one side did bring the whole stud out, which isn't a big deal, but typically it would just bring the nut off the end of it. And then the fuel rail is free now, but I still have a couple things here holding me on. I've got a ground screw right here I'm going to remove because that's tied right here to the wiring, and that needs to be lifted off. And then it's just held in with these little clips right all up on here. So we'll get the whole wiring harness apparatus off, and then the next thing that'll need to come off is the main fuel feed. The ground is another 10 millimeter socket, just right on there. Pop it off. We will stick that in our bolt container. All right, so now we're just down to these clips. So I'm going to use this flathead and see what... Okay, just that simple, guys. You just go behind this ear, put a little pressure on it, and it lifts right off. Now we're finally down to the whole fuel rail, which is this guy right here. So the next order of event will be to basically pop off the main feed line right here, which it is just a quick connect, thankfully, because I don't really have any fuel tools at the house right now. So it's just these two green tabs. It's going to have a little bit of pressure. Don't worry about that. Just watch your eyes when you unplug it. All right, guys. We got the main fuel feed unplugged. Like I said, it is still under pressure a little bit from the car running, so little bit of fuel will come out of there. You can put something under the car. I wasn't too worried about it, so I just popped it off again. It's just a second little spurt. Just watch your eyes. Throw some safety glasses on if you want. And then after that, guys, we're going to pull off each of these injector clips, which is probably kind of hard to see, but there's 4 little clips. And how they work, just put your screwdriver behind the back of it and just pop it out. And this is what it looks like. Just a super simple, like, horseshoe saddle clip looking thing. and there's 4 of them. So the biggest thing with these is you just want to be careful to not drop it in the engine bay, because then it can be a little bit of a pain to find them. So 3rd one coming out, 4th one out. All right, and that's it. That's the 4th little clip right there. In theory, guys, we should be able to lift up on this and pull it out of the engine bay. Like I said, there is that center cylinder, but I'm assuming it just lifts out like an injector would. Yep, it does. Okay, a little bit of fuel pressure still. Okay, a lot of fuel in there still. So just like that, guys. Now, wow, those are gross. Golly. All right, guys, so I don't know if you can see this, but it's just like stuff everywhere on these. These are nasty. Not necessarily means they're clogged, but they are gross and they really need cleaned up. I'm going to take this outside and dump this fuel in a safe environment. All right, so here's the 4 injectors. As you can see, there's a lot of crud on the outside of them. Doesn't mean the inside's dirty at all, but they're definitely gross just from sitting in there for so long. These definitely look like the original injectors. So I'm hoping I can just clean them. There's a chance I may just end up replacing these with 4 new OEM Honda injectors, but we'll stick those up there for now. The fuel rail is pretty simple. There's really not much to clean in this guy. It's basically a, I don't know, 1/8 1/4 opening, and it's just a long hollow tube. Well, it may not be hollow, but it's just a long cylinder, and then it has larger holes at the opening, and the injectors where it steps down. So yeah, as y'all can see, just a lot of junk in here. So I'm going to try to go through really carefully and get all this crud out without pushing it down the injector holes, and then I'll probably take a rag and just wipe inside the holes as best I can. But first I'm going to try to get all that loose stuff cleaned out, even though it's not really going to affect the injectors. I just want to get that mess out of there. All right, so got my rigid vacuum here. I just decided this would be the easiest way to try to suck out the crud in here, even though it's a little wet from gas. So I'm just going to flip that on. And don't worry, I'll mute the audio for this because it's a little bit noisy, but I'm just going to go in here, suck all that out, and then follow it up with a paper towel, and then we'll get on to cleaning the actual fuel injectors themselves. Going to take this little bit of paper towel, going to kind of roll up the end like so, and then I'm going to take a little bit of this starting fluid just to kind of get the paper towel moist, and do that on it. So that way it's just got a little bit of moisture, and I'm going to use my phone as a light just to kind of see what I'm doing. And then I don't know how effective this is going to be at cleaning it, honestly, but I mean, it's definitely definitely getting a decent amount of stuff. I just really want those O-rings to seal in there well and not have a fuel leak on top here, because then I'm never going to have good fuel mileage if my fuel is just dumping out the top of the engine. All right, guys, so now you can see fairly clean. Where the O-ring is going to seal, which is this outer wall, is pretty much spotless. Again, a little bit of crud still down in there, but about all I can do with my pinky, and I'm happy with that. All right, so now that that is vacuumed and wiped out with our paper towel, we'll go ahead and move on to the injectors. And what I'll start with doing with these guys is I'll kind of do the same thing. I'm actually going to start using this dirty one a little bit, and I'm just going to go through here and wipe all this stuff out, because y'all can see, I mean, it's terrible. So ideally, I would just replace these because they're not that expensive and just get 4 of them. I think they're like $100 or even less than that. I just get a reputable brand or OEM, which might be a little more than 100, but I'm just trying to do this on a budget and just trying to see if cleaning these helps. So just really working those ends there, just getting them nice and shiny. And we're going to ditch this and get a nice fresh one. And the starting fluid really helps. Just hold your breath, because that stuff is potent. And then just really twisting up these ends. You can see it's looking way better already. Alright guys, so here's all 4 of them. They're pretty well cleaned out. Again, well, I say cleaned out. We just got the outer sections cleaned off on all 4 of them. So now we're going to use this nifty little thing. It's a power probe. And basically how it works is it just plugs up to 12 volt DC power, so just to your power supply. And then when I press this button, this probe is supplied with 12 volts. So we'll leave this unhooked for right now. And one of these terminals in here is power and ground. I don't know which one yet. So we're going to take this little alligator clip for the ground probe, and we'll just attach it onto one of these. And then basically what we'll do, we'll apply this to power. And then, all right, so I can hear the fuel injector clicking, which is awesome. So then what we need to do is spray something in here. Since we can't put gas through it, obviously, because I don't have any gas, we will spray something into the end of this while we apply power to it. So it's going to be a little tricky. I almost need a couple set of hands. But, yeah, how am I going to do that? It's going to be incredibly hard. So I decided to move all of this over to the shed because I really needed a vise to hold the injector in there while I spray it and apply power to it, because I just can't do it. I don't have enough hands to hold it all. So again, we got the one probe on the ground side, and then this side's over here, and then we're just applying power. You can hear the injector clicking just a little bit. It's a little crude, guys, and it makes a mess, but it was able to shoot some out. I am going to throw on some safety goggles because it does make a mess, and I want to spray a little more through there. All right, we got a pretty good stream out of that one. And aside from that, guys, I don't really know another way to clean it. So that's one done. And I'm just going to wipe a little bit of that juice off of there. And we'll move on to the other ones, and we're just going to do all four of these the exact same way. Stick it in the vise, kind of angling the injector out so I can see it sprayed. Very gently clamp it. Just, you don't want to crack the injector. They're not very strong. Click the ground end onto the ground terminal as far over as you can. And then applying power here. I'm going to go ahead and just spray this out too as well. Alright, and then we'll dump all that out. Again, this would have to have a pretty big clog in it to really do anything, but we have it off. We may as well go the extra mile and just hose it down. And then now with our four, hopefully fully cleaned out injectors, we'll go ahead and we'll put these on this part first this time instead of doing them on the engine first. So it's got this little hook. That hook goes up into this little slot. So you just gently work that up in there like that until it's fully seated, and it kind of bottoms out right here in this groove. So just work those up in there. I did not mark each of these injectors. I probably should have, but that's okay, because if this doesn't work, I will be buying just 4 OEM injectors. And same with this one, just work it up in there like that. So you want to be careful when you do that. Make sure you don't roll the O-rings. It doesn't hurt to put a little bit of, honestly, like saliva on them or something to kind of lubricate it up so it slides in easier. But if you're careful with it and just gentle, you can just work them right in. So there we go. We got our fuel reel back on with all these little clips up in place there. And that's going to sit in the engine just like that. So we'll go ahead real quick, and we'll put our 4 little tabs back on. These guys go just like this. This little foot right here clips into this little groove on the injector. So you just kind of got to finagle them a little bit, but just pop it on like that. That's as far on as it goes. And you'll see on the front, it stops right there with it kind of hooking around the edge of the injector just like that. And you can see I pull on that, nothing. I heard it click into place. We're good there. And do that all down all 4 of them. All right, and there is our fuel rail, all 4 injectors. Everything's fully clipped on. And now with these guys a little bit moist, all the O-rings on here, we will proceed to do exactly what we just did. Line everything up, kind of slide it in this way. Line up the studs, and then start from the back to the front. And just like that, guys, with a little bit of lubricant, aka saliva, if that's all you got on hand. I know it's a little gross, but it's an old trick and it works phenomenal. And they all just slid in place perfectly. I can't see any of the O-rings. It's tight down on there. We'll take our bolts, well, in this case, the stud in the nut and the nut, and we'll slide them back on. And then I'm going to take my actual wrench, and I don't know the torque spec on these. I just go snug, not crazy tight. It's just bolting into aluminum, and just get those nice and snugged up. And then the next thing we'll do is connect this feed line on the fuel rail. It's a little bit tight back here because the hoses, but you can do it without removing any of these hoses. All right, and then once you hear that click, tug on it a couple times. Make sure it's not kind of falsely on there and that it doesn't pop off, because if not, you'll never start your car back up because it'll just be pouring gas everywhere. Now with that done, we'll flip this back over. The first thing we'll reattach is that ground strap, which is just that 10mm bolt right here. And we'll use our extension for that because it's just a little bit easier to get in there. But I will start the bolt by hand, just like that. Good. And then your injectors can only clip on in one spot. So first off, I just stick this clip back on like that. Plug these guys back in. They only go one way, so it's dummy proof. I said it's dummy proof as I'm struggling. Make sure you hear that click. All the way down to number 4 or number 1. I don't know what the firing order is exactly on this car. Okay, so we got everything. We cleaned the injectors, wiped them all down, sprayed them all out, hooked up the main feed, hooked up the ground, made sure all the injectors were seated in there properly. Our 2 bolts here are back on. Like I said, ground strap. 4 injector plugs are back on. Now, before I put this lovely Honda VTEC cover on, I am going to start the car, make sure I don't have any leaks up here, and then we'll put this on as the last part. All right, now with that cover off, we'll go ahead, fire it up. We'll go back out to the front and make sure there's no fuel leaking, anything like that. It may take a second to start. Don't freak out. That is because the fuel system right now has air in it and there's no fuel up at the injector. So, and just like that, fires right back up. Idling well. Let's go out to the front and see if we have any leaks. And main feed there is not leaking. I don't see anything leaking, guys. So we're good. And final step, put the cover on. It goes just like this. Sits right down on there. These 2 long bolts go right through the top. Again, these don't need to be tight, just snug. It's just tightening this plastic cover down. So just half a quarter turn after they're tight by hand, and we're good. And now we will find out whether that actually did anything. But either way, I feel better about cleaning out where the injectors sit, spraying some stuff through the injectors. Car sounds the same, doesn't idle any differently, which again, it wasn't misfiring or anything like that. So time will tell. I'm about on E right now, so we'll put a new tank in. We'll run a whole tank through there. If it really didn't improve anything, I'll probably go ahead and order new fuel injectors and a new fuel filter as well, and see if that eliminates my problem. And if that doesn't, kind of just down to fuel pump at that point. Or I have the odd car that gets terrible fuel mileage. I'm not really sure yet, so we will see. But like always, thanks again. Like, subscribe, send to a friend who has a Honda who's running into some fueling issues, maybe mileage issues, and we'll see if it takes care of it. Thanks, guys.